It's just like every other day for Shiraishi in school. He is standing inches from his professor, but the man doesn't see him until he taps him so he can get his lecture notes from him. Shiraishi is quite convinced that he's air because nobody ever notices him except his family and a certain classmate. Just when he starts browsing about being invisible on Google, the girl who doesn't fail to spot him arrives. Nagisa Kubo, the popular scholar and athlete, ironically appears to be stalking him. She sees his online search and teases him for it while taking a picture of his screen. Kubo wonders how nobody else notices him and decides to see just how invisible he is by blackmailing him with a picture. She makes him stand on his table with a ridiculous pose. He reluctantly obeys and is shocked when his professor and the rest of the class turn around and notice him. After the class, Kubo tells him that he was the protagonist of the class for the day. After school, other girls talk with Kubo about how they spotted Shiraishi twice in one day. The girls seem delighted by this, and it's because the boy had been so elusive that students considered sightings of him good luck. This only piques Kubo's curiosity as to why she finds Shiraishi so easily. At home, Shiraishi just enters his room and reads his manga, which is one of the pleasures he enjoys in his invisible life. The next day, Kubo seems to be upset with him, but he doesn't know why. She asks him to recall his day, but he can't remember doing anything to annoy her. Apparently, she greeted him earlier, but he thought she was referring to someone else, so he didn't pay attention. He still doesn't know what he did wrong, so when Kubo proposes a game, he agrees to it. She sits on his lap to check his invisibility, and they both realize that nobody noticed. However, Shiraishi gets nervous, so when she gets off him, he runs away. Later in class, Kubo decides to help Shiraishi get noticed in class and helps him get all his answers correct. It's a strange feeling for him, but he admits that he enjoyed it. At break time, she tries to get his phone number so she can chat him up, but is distracted by her friends who didn't notice him. So, Shiraishi uses the opportunity to dash home so he can read the new volume of his manga. Over the weekend, Kubo sees him at the park and takes several selfies with him till her phone camera finally focuses on him. Afterward, she gets his phone number, and later that night, she sends him a message along with the pictures. While he's dealing with shock upon seeing the messages, Kubo seems very excited on the other end, and her older sister immediately knows that something is making her very cheerful. The next day, Shiraishi has gym practice and has to run. After the exhausting activity, Kubo approaches him, but he's insecure when he breathes in her lovely scent. However, she moves closer to him, stating that it doesn't bother him, before giving him scented towels so that they smell the same. Later that day, Shiraishi goes shopping for his manga, but the automatic door doesn't detect him. Luckily, Kubo is nearby and she helps him out. Inside the store, she sees a cheerful side of Shiraishi for the first time as he gets his favorite manga series. She asks if she can borrow the first volume of the manga. They get to his house and he lends her the first 3 volumes before she points out that she lives just 5 minutes away from him. The next day, Kubo wakes up extra early and even wears her sister's perfume so Shiraishi would notice. Her older sister Akina notices this and instantly concludes that she has a crush. She denies it and rushes out to walk with Shiraishi to school, but he doesn't notice any of her efforts. The two sit on a bench, and not long after, Kubo's friends, Tama and Hazuki, arrive, but don't notice him. Once again, he slips away, but a car splashes a puddle of water. Kubo escorts him home to get changed, but he soon realizes he left his keys inside, so Kubo asks that he follow her to her place and get changed into her gym clothes. After changing into her clothes, the two head to school. Kubo finds out that Shiraishi is just an inch taller than her, and teases him, saying that in couples, the boy should be at least 6 inches taller. After school, she sees him at the park with his little brother Seita. Seita insists that they all share a drink, but Shiraishi pretends so he doesn't indirectly kiss her. Later, Shiraishi goes to buy manga from a store where Akina works. He also decides to buy an adult magazine with a model in front, but Akina catches him and tells him he's too young for it. He shyly buys the manga and is surprised that she noticed him. Akina finds his student ID when he drops it and gives Kubo to return it. Later, Kubo returns it and makes things weird by comparing the model's melons to hers, teasing him. While talking with her sister, Kubo states her plans to spend Christmas Eve shopping with Shiraishi. He buys her winter mittens, while she gives him a yellow shirt with the writing "main character" on it so he never goes unnoticed. While playing with his brother, Shiraishi gets a video of Kubo acting silly and it scares him. The next day at school, he wears odd socks and Kubo notices this. But he too also points out that she's wearing tights. As usual, she uses the opportunity to tease him for looking at her thighs before explaining that her socks were wet. After school, Kubo takes Shiraishi to a store to try out a weird drink. She wants to share a drink with him, but he refuses because he's embarrassed by the indirect kiss. However, Kubo succeeds in her mission because later, she takes a bite out of his snack before he can eat it and waves him goodbye. He contemplates what to do and decides to eat the snack, but it gets knocked out of his hands by people who didn't see him. Valentine's Day arrives and all boys are anxious and expecting chocolate gifts from the girls, but Shiraishi is unfazed because girls don't even remember him, so he's shocked to find a chocolate heart under his desk. He assumes it's a mistake, but then thinks it might be Kubo, but she tells him it's a secret admirer, when in truth, she had spent all night baking it for him. Shiraishi is used to eating lunch alone, but Kubo's made it a habit to join him. He even has to avoid her attempts to feed him, but he can't avoid hand-feeding her at her request. Tama and Hazuki finally conclude that she's infatuated with Shiraishi, and Tama expresses her disappointment that she'd settled for the school ghost. But Kubo defends Shiraishi and scolds her, stating that she doesn't know his true nature. At this point, her friends suspect that her feelings may be much more than just infatuation. The next day, Kubo comes over to Shiraishi's chair, and they listen to each other's music. After seeing his obsession with manga, she decides to watch his favorite anime movie and ends up enjoying it. White Day arrives, so Shiraishi buys chocolates for his secret admirer, who still doesn't know. He gives them to Kubo to pass on to the unknown person. She subtly hints that she's the one before telling him he's not, and confuses him the more. One day, Shiraishi is spotted by a girl named Saki. He's shocked when he realizes that she's Kubo's cousin because he sees Akina again. At this point, he confirms that the ability to always single him out must be in Kubo's genetics or something. Akina chats with him for a while, then they exchange numbers. She goes home excited that she now has a new way to tease her sister. Exams are drawing closer, so Shiraishi's mother threatens to confiscate his games and manga if he does badly. Kubo, who is already a scholar, offers to help him study and proves to be a great tutor as well. The next day, Shiraishi comes down with a fever, and Kubo notices his absence from school. She checks up on him by texting him, but Seita replies with an emoji suggesting he misses her. Shiraishi finds out and tries to clarify what happened, but she doesn't buy it and just teases him with a similar emoji and says it was Akina who sent it. The next day, Shiraishi manages to go to school but finds out that Kubo has come down with a fever as well. He takes her to the infirmary where she falls asleep holding his hands. Shiraishi realizes that for the first time, he doesn't feel invisible, but like the main character. That brings us to the end of today's recap on Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible. I hope you enjoyed this recap as much as I did. Please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and kindly comment below if you'd like to see the next part. Bye and thanks for watching. See you next time.